we kind of bisected Sarasota Bay into a Manatee County and a Sarasota County portion. And we lumped Palmasola Bay in with that Manatee County portion of Sarasota Bay. So we met with the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program. We kind of wanted to be consistent with them. So we took their segmentation scheme and used that. So the results that you're going to see, the top line numbers don't change, but the way we're going to present it by base segment do change. So let's look at the bay as a whole. This is what it looks like in 2022. About a 6% loss overall, Sarasota Bay wide, which is about half what it was in 2020. So not as much loss, but still loss, and that's, we don't like to see that. And we're going to go through each one of these just like we did for Tampa Bay and break it down for you, starting in Palmasola Bay. Oh, before I do that though, I do want to point out something that's interesting too, is you pay attention to the 1988 numbers. Most of the grass in Sarasota Bay and the entire estuary was patchy. And today, even though we've seen back-to-back losses, we're still mostly continuous, which is good. So let's look at Palmasola Bay. So this is one of the new segments that we've delineated based on the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program's segmentation scheme. This is what it looked like in 2020, and here's what it looks like in 2022. So really not much change, about a 1% change. Again, that's within the noise of the map, so we would say that there's really no change between 2020 and 2022 for Palmasola Bay. And again, just like the rest of the Sarasota Bay Estuary, most of the grass that you see in Palmasola Bay is continuous, and it seems to be holding its own after kind of that drop off that we saw between 2014 and 2016. Now we go down to Sarasota Bay proper, and this is where it gets interesting. So this is what it looked like in 2020, and here's what it looks like in 2022. I'll toggle back and forth so you can kind of see the change. And again, you know, not great news. You see back-to-back losses, but again, about half as much loss in 22 than we saw in 2020. And like Palmasola Bay, most of the grass that you see in Sarasota Bay is continuous as opposed to patchy, which is good news. There's where the changes happen. Now I want to point a couple of things out here. You see a whole lot of red, but there's some green in there too. You see where Long Bar Point is. That's that kind of linear green polygon right in the middle of the screen. So that was an area of intense loss in 2020. Between 2018 and 2020, that's where most of the loss happened. And now we're seeing some signs that there is more grass there than there was in 2020. But we're also seeing a fair amount of loss just to the south and west of that area as well. So I want to go back to 1988. So we're going to go back to the very first real comprehensive map that we produced. And you can see what it looked like. It was mostly patchy grass, about 6,327 acres. And then what I'm going to do is kind of take you through a time series, and you're going to see how this bay just fills in with grass. And so it's important to note not only the spatial distribution, but also how much continuous grass we started to gain in Sarasota Bay up until about 2016, and then 18 we started to see a drop off. So again, not a good story, but keeping it in perspective to what it looked like in 1988, we're still doing far better than we were even really a few years ago. And so that's where we are today. If you compare the numbers from 1988 to 2022, you can see quite a significant gain in that continuous grass. And again, some of the loss that you see in the patchy is a conversion from patchy to continuous, so it's not a total loss. But overall, about 20% more grass today than we had in 1988. So I wanted to draw your attention to that Longbar Point area too. Again, these little crosses are field verification points in that area. That's the 2022 imagery that you see there. And the reason why I wanted to show you this is because one of the things that, one of the limitations of our maps is, again, we're taking imagery at about 9,000 feet above the surface of the Earth. And so we're limited to what we can see. 10% is sort of the cutoff. Anything below 10% coverage, we can't really see it. And so I bring your attention to this area because right in this area here, now wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. There it is, there it is. There's grass there. So there's seagrass there, but it's mapped. There is no grass mapped at that location because that's all we saw. So from the air, you can't see that. So my point to that is that there are areas, and this is again where the field data is really important, where we think that there is the potential for some recovery, but it's too sparse to see from the air. So again, field data, really important to confirm what's actually happening there. Have we bottomed out in Sarasota Bay? Don't know. But there are signs that there is grass that are coming back in those areas that we lost in 2020. So let's continue our southward journey to Roberts Bay. Again, Roberts Bay, very small, barely 300 acres of grass in 2020. And Roberts Bay is an interesting one. I'm sure Dave Tabasco can talk all day about Roberts Bay and the lesser bays from here south. But overall, it's about a 35-acre loss of grass in Roberts Bay. Most of that again was in that patchy coverage, and that's kind of the spatial distribution of where we saw gains and where we saw losses. So it's kind of spread out throughout. We thought there was maybe some connection between the intercoastal waterway and some of those losses, but I'm not sure there is. Now we go down further south to Little Sarasota Bay. And here again, this is relatively small. The vast majority of the acreage is driven by Sarasota Bay proper because that's where most of the grass is. But still, Little Sarasota Bay is very important. And here again, we saw about a 30-acre change in grass. A little bit of an increase in the patchy and a drop off in the continuous. Is it something to be concerned about? It's certainly something to watch. Again, the losses and gains are kind of spread out throughout the bay. So it's just something to keep an eye on. Then we go to Blackburn Bay, and here, again, it's about the same percent change. A little less in acreage because there's less acres in Blackburn Bay, but very similar trend as well. Drop off in the continuous, a little bit of a rise in the patchy coverage. But overall, not much change. All right. So here's the top line points for Sarasota Bay. Again, like Tampa Bay, we experienced the third straight loss in grass since 2016, reaching a 15-year low. But as you saw, we're still well above the 1988 acreage numbers. Loss of about 6%, that's half what it was between 2018 and 2020. And most of the loss really was in Sarasota Bay proper with about 486 acres. So we're now back to where we were around 2006 timeframe. But again, like I showed you in the video, some of the field verification points that we have, and also talking with folks from the county, talking with the estuary program, and others, that there are signs that there's grass growing in some of those areas where it was mapped as no grass because it's so sparse and we just can't see it from the air. So we want to keep a close eye on those areas. All right, we're getting there. We're almost there. So Don and Roberts Bay and Lemon Bay. So we made another change here as well, similar to Sarasota Bay, to be a little bit more consistent. In the past, we mapped Lemon Bay as one segment. We didn't have Don and Roberts Bay segregated, and rightfully so, because Don and Roberts Bay is really, really small. But it's up there by itself, and a lot of times when we would give these presentations for Lemon Bay, we get lost because it's way up there. So we decided again to be more consistent with the estuary program. In this case with Coastal and Heartland National Estuary Partnership, we wanted to segregate Dunn and Roberts Bay and create its own segment. So you'll still see the same total acreage for Dunn and Roberts Bay and Lemon Bay, and then we'll break it down by segment. So this is Dunn and Roberts Bay, Lemon Bay in 2020. Saw a fairly sizable reduction in grass. And then in 2022, we saw about a 4% change overall. Again, that's getting really close to that practical quantitative limit. It is a loss, but it's 112 acres, and it's not major loss. Where we saw the greatest loss, the 33% change, was in Dunn and Roberts Bay. But again, that's only 16 acres because it's so tiny. And we'll take a closer look at that here in a second. I'll just show you where the loss occurred. And, you know, again, it's pretty spread out in the Lemon Bay system. Again, just like in Sarasota Bay, an interesting point to keep in mind, back in the day, you had more patchy grass than continuous. Today, you see more continuous grass than you do patchy grass. So yes, loss, not good, we don't like to see it, but the fact that we have more continuous grass beds than patchy is a good thing. So let's zoom into Dunn and Roberts Bay. 48 acres. We've got 48 acres of grass in 2020. How does that look in 2022? Well, we got 32 acres. So we lost about 16 acres. That's a pretty sizable percent change, 33%. And you can see on the graphic on the bottom left, a lot of that loss is driven by patchy seagrass, but we also saw loss in the continuous grass beds as well. So we don't like to see that. And then this is where the losses occurred. So kind of concentrated down on the southern end of Dunn and Roberts Bay, and then both losses and gains are kind of spread out throughout Dunn and Roberts Bay and Lyons Bay to the north of that as well. And then just to show you just Lemon Bay, so we took Dunn and Roberts Bay out of that. That table's not right, but the graphic is. So if you look at the graphic, you can see, again, just like, I mean, this is essentially the exact same thing as what you saw earlier, because Lemon Bay is driving the relationship here, where you have more continuous grass than you do patchy grass. And then again, just to show you, it's basically the same map, shows you most of the losses kind of spread out throughout the system. So, I know it's kind of redundant, but third straight loss, this is 2016.